This podcast is part of More Than Baseball, More the Baseball organization. More Than Baseball is working daily to better the lives of minor leaguers all over baseball. Our mission is to protect and enhance the future of the baseball game by allowing every ball player to live their best life during and after their careers. Actually, today's a big day for minor leaguers, and we'll jump into that in a second. But I'm super excited for my guest today, a top 30 prospect in the Marlins organization. He might be one of the best hitters in their whole system. A dude who's absolutely putting up video game numbers. My guy, Troy Johnston. How's it going, brother?
Good. How are you? I'm happy to be here and
Yeah.
excited to talk about this huge, momentous day in minor league baseball.
Yeah, so let's just start off with that. I mean, that kind of came out of nowhere. I saw, I think, this morning on when I was on Twitter or something, and I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't planning on talking about that, but you know what? Let's talk about it right now. So the unionification, union, I don't even know the word, but the minor league
Unionization. Unionization. There we
unionization
go. Yeah.
of the minor leaguers. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a huge step for, minor league baseball players. They've been fighting for this and trying to do this for years, and it's been hard
Hmm.
because we've never had a voice. We've never had anybody to speak up for us. But with COVID coming in and the 2020 kind of boom of, you know, rights and activists that were coming out for minor league baseball players, it
Hmm.
was a big step for us, especially on social media and having the
Yeah.
word get out of all these injustices that were happening. But realistically, this is just a great stepping stone. And, um, what it all stems from is pretty much all the fight that the MLPA has been fighting for years with the owners of Major League Baseball and kind of the higher ups in that. And so now
Hmm.
having them allowing us to join them in their fight and their way of making a better life for baseball players is just a huge step. And I'm just thankful to be a part of it.
Yeah, like was this something you guys were kind of aware of prior to like last night or this morning, or was this kind of like out of nowhere
So
for you
it
guys too?
so in my mind, I've been a part of quite a few meetings, and I've been a silent activist. We'll put it this way, in a way
Hmm.
that I've been listening in on meetings. I talk to people. I try to talk to my friends, my teammates, all of this. I'll post on social media about it. But for me, I knew this was the end goal. The end goal was to unionize so that we could have a little bit of a front and a little bit of leverage, so that we can then throw our hat in the ring and say what we need, and not as much what we want, but what we need to then be successful in this game, in this life, for the short amount of time that we do get to play it. Because as everybody knows, baseball isn't forever,
Yeah.
and so the minor league um, situation that we have is something to fight for and something to make better, because a lot of people do enjoy baseball. And, as America's pastime, I think people should understand that, the minor league lifestyle is hard. But again, the end point was to be unionized so that we can fight for our rights and what we think is, realistic for us to then be the best that we can be.
Yeah, for sure. And like this podcast, like was kind of started that way. Like this is part of More Than Baseball. Like they've been leading the
Mm-hmm.
fight along with like advocates for minor leaguers, adopt a minor leaguer. There's so many, not so many, but there's several key people and organizations that have been kind of fighting for the rights of minor leaguers. Obviously, the new housing rule this season is a huge
Huge,
help for you
huge,
guys.
yes.
How does that work for you? Because you're married, so like how does that do you how do what kind of goes into that then as a married baseball player?
So I have been very, very fortunate that the teams that I've been on, most of the lower level teams, they do have roommates inside of the apartments, inside of the
Hmm.
rooms, whatever it is, if they hotel, whatever. At the double A level in Pensacola, um, maybe it's because of who I am, that I think of myself as a relatively nice person,
Yeah.
and so I try to be nice to everybody that I can and expect the same from others. And so they were nice to me this year and granted me my own room. They knew I had a wife. I think that was in kind of the Marlins rules, saying that if you were married, we're gonna help you out because we know traveling with family is very important.
Hmm.
I also do have a dog, which they've been very helpful with as well. It's a little dog, very very cute, easy to travel with. But then in the double A level, so I did live with two other roommates who shared a room. And then another couple moved in. And so it was just two players in an apartment, which worked out great.
Hmm.
And that was in Pensacola, really nice apartment. And then we got a huge upgrade when we went to AAA. It was a everybody gets their own room. Everybody has these very nice king size beds. Everything. It was just a much larger upgrade, and so it was very easy for us with the transition being married. I believe at the lower levels, the low A, the high A, the FCL, the AZL, those kind of places. I don't think that's a luxury, is traveling with your spouse or significant other,
Mhm.
as it is in the higher levels. But then again, a lot of people in the higher levels do have those significant others,
Yeah.
so it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, typically when you're in the higher levels, you're a little bit older than maybe some of the guys in
Yeah,
like low A, high A, rookie ball, and all that stuff. I actually know a guy who is in the Blue Jays organization, and he's married, but his wife, like just the way everything works out, like his wife lives like where they grew up or whatever, and then she just visits him every
yeah,
once in a while. Which to me, I couldn't do that. Like I don't. I said kudos to you, dude,
yeah.
because
You
like
gotta have
that's
your spouse. You gotta have your spouse right there. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah, especially like in the minor league. So your wife has just like been grinding through the system with you. Like, so kudos to her for just, suffering through that minor league life with you because the minor league life is not the easiest life at all.
No, not at all. And she knows it's pick up and leave whenever we
Hmm.
get a call. Everything works on a call. But she has been very, very supportive of me through everything that we do. And packing and driving, whether it's like I said, we drove from Washington to Florida, and that was an adventure in itself.
Hmm.
But she loves this lifestyle more than not because she loves going to the games. Her favorite thing is a hot dog and a beer on a Friday night at the game. And so just having that and having my family around me is just such a blessing. But she's definitely a trooper. But the cool part about it is she actually owns her own business, and
Hmm.
so she can travel around with it and still do what she wants to do, and have a enjoyable life still with the minor league lifestyle.
Yeah, what kind of business does she own? I mean, give it a free plug.
So give it a free plug. So our business is called Styled and Social.
Okay.
You can find us at styledandsocial.com. It's a women's clothing boutique, and it's very up to date. It's very new. We just started about a year ago. We just celebrated our year anniversary on it. And so it's actually really cool. What we do is we outsource the clothes. We will put them up. She models them. I take all the pictures.
Nice.
I do all the finances. She does the website design. We do all that together, and so it's actually a really fun thing that we do. But at Styled and Social, we do have mostly women's clothing stuff,
Mhm.
but actually most of the baseball players, we had this hat line that we went through, and they were smiley face hats, and it just we didn't sell too many to other people, but once I got into the locker room and I started wearing a couple, all of a sudden all these baseball players would show up. Hey, can I get one of those? Can I get one of those? So they
Yeah.
were some of our best customers there.
That's awesome. Yeah, and kudos to you guys because I mean, obviously owning a business, especially in the last year or two, with COVID and all that stuff, hasn't probably isn't the easiest time to start a business or like even own a business. But kudos to you guys for making that work. So you're the photographer then, like you're just out there, getting all the lighting set perfect and just taking all the pictures.
Yeah, I am. I like to expand outside of my
Hmm.
baseball realm. I like to do something different, make myself a little more well-rounded. And so I've actually, half of being a photographer is having a good camera. So we spent quite a bit of money on a camera, but Florida has some great lighting and some great, outdoor picture settings. So pretty much it does what it needs to by itself. But the model does great, and the camera does great. So yeah, I
Yeah.
like it. It's fun.
So tell me this then. Have you ever thought about maybe branching into like your own side of the business where it's like, I'm going to start doing maybe like clothing for men? Because you said most of your stuff is kind of women based that your wife does. Have you ever thought about maybe branching off and doing like maybe like a sports theme apparel or whatever maybe?
No, I have definitely thought about that. For me, I just haven't been as invested in the actual product. That's more her line. I
Mhm.
don't. The product is everything, but she's more in control of the product than not. For me, I went to school for business, and I've always been obsessed with running business, how it runs, how can you make it more efficient, how can we do things right, how can we do it better. And so for me, the background of everything and the background of the business is really what I'm interested in. The actual selling the product, going
Mhm.
out and marketing it, like that kind of stuff. I don't really. It kind of is it kind of is what it is. It doesn't really
Mhm.
do it for me, but that background side of like
Sure.
where all the money goes, how can we allocate it? What can we do better? How can we make things more efficient? What trends do I see and what sells? That
Yeah.
kind of stuff. That's more interesting to me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. And like I said, kudos to both of you for doing that, especially nowadays. But let's talk about this. So I had Luke Berryhill from the Astros organization. He's a top 30 pick, a top 30 prospect with them. And I asked him, like, hey, do you look at the rankings where you are, in the top 30 of your organization? He's like, yeah, I do. And he has a couple of friends who are on there as well. They'll make fun of each other if they move up or down. So how did you find out that you were, one of the top 30 prospects for the Marlins? Because obviously that's it's a big deal.
I actually didn't know that until I want to say I wasn't put on that until the beginning of the 2022 season, maybe the end of 2021, something like that. But I got a text from one of my buddies, and he's like, and I said something snarky or something
Mhm.
like that, and he says, "Oh, big prospect guy." I'm like, "I'm not a prospect. I'm 17th rounder.
Yeah.
Is what it is." And then he's like, and then he sends me a picture of it. I'm like, "Oh, oh, that's kind of cool. That's
Yeah.
something that I didn't think was going to happen when I first got drafted, but I'm very happy with it. I've worked very hard for it, and I'm just trying to earn my spot and climb the ladder."
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's all you can do. Like did your parents tell you at all? Because I feel like that, like, I don't know how I'm sure your dad probably listens and watches everything you're on and stuff. So shout out to your mom and dad, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. But did they tell you, like, hey, you're a top prospect now, dude?
No, they're so supportive with everything they do. They might look at it, but it's not something they'll usually send me tweets or do something like that. My dad's all in this stuff. He'll probably be the first one listening to this podcast when it comes out, but he'll send me stuff every once in a while, but I don't. We didn't really know about it. I think I had to tell him that one, and because it's sometimes it's pretty publicized, sometimes it's not,
Yeah.
but other people look at it more than I do.
That's fair. That's fair. And like I said, like, shout out to your dad because I know he's gonna listen to this. And speaking of your dad, I heard he was a wrestler and kind of got you into wrestling when you were in high school.
Yeah, so our family's been a wrestling fighting family ever since I was a kid. So we've always kind of wrestled around the house. My mom hated it. Shout out to Mrs. Johnston, but we a lot of broken lamps and a lot of broken picture frames and all this stuff from three boys rolling around trying to do wrestle and whatnot. But yeah, my dad just retired as being a wrestling coach at Rogers High School in Puyallup.
Nice.
He was doing that for about I want to say he's been a wrestling coach for about 25 years. I want to say that's what it was. I want to
Yeah.
say it was right around when I was born. He started being a wrestling coach. And sadly, my brother was a much better wrestler than me. But I held my own, and I did have fun, and wrestling's always been in my blood, and I really enjoyed it. In high school I did get hurt a little during football, so I never was able to kind of complete my wrestling saga, if you want to put it that way.
Mhm.
But my sophomore year of high school and my freshman year, I was a pretty good wrestler for a buck 70.
Nice. And so you mentioned football, like you just casually threw that in there. Like, yeah, I did wrestling, I did football, I was a baseball guy. Like, were you one of those kids who were just good at every sport they ever played? Like, because I hated those kids.
You would hate me then. I still to this day I was never very I was never very good at football. I could play and I could
Mhm.
hold my own, and I was on varsity from I think all 3 years I was in high school, and my high school we went from sophomore to senior.
Yeah.
So all 3 years I was on varsity, but still to this day I can pick up a golf club and shoot a 78, 77, something like this. But if you give me a basketball, there is no chance I will put it in the hoop. That is the one sport that as wrestling and basketball were always the same season. So my dad, we never really played basketball. That was the
Mhm.
one sport that I never could do. But everything else, I think I'd hold my own.
So maybe that was just there just to kind of humble you a little bit because, we don't want you to get too big of a head when you're good at every
You don't want
sport.
to get.
You golf, you're probably good at bowling. I can imagine.
I can bowl a little bit. Oh yeah, I can
Yeah.
bowl a little bit.
Like I said, just one of those guys who were good at everything. So let's get this narrative started then. If you were in a benches clearing brawl, people should probably stay away from you because you might be able to, hold your own as a wrestler. People don't want to mess with that.
Well, I can tell you, wrestling is much different than fighting. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Wrestling, you're trying to put guys in different holds, get them on their back, and fighting, it's you're trying to punch people in the face. But for me, and I'm not much of a. I won't go out of my way to fight anybody. So in a bench clearing brawl, I'm probably the hype man in the back,
There you
trying
go.
to hype people up. Go get them, yeah, pushing guys in the way.
Mhm.
Go get them, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, yeah, I was in the back. I was in that fight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's always that guy. People need that guy to kind of hype you up a little bit. That's probably what I would do because I did karate, but I did like 3 weeks, and I was a white belt. So like that was my karate career.
Oh, there you go.
And I actually broke a black belt's nose though. Like that's kind of like my claim to fame. Like
Oh, all
there's
right.
the instructor, and she for some reason wanted me to practice sparring with her, and it was like knife defense or something, and I hit it the wrong way, ran up, broke her nose. Yeah, it was just I was like, you know what, this isn't for me. Like I can't come back here anymore after I broke someone's nose. Like I just had to hang up. I had to hang it up. You know, 3 weeks
Especially,
strong.
especially the instructor. My goodness.
Yeah, yeah, and she was the owner of
Oh,
the place, so it got worse. You know, like it was bad.
so are you sure you quit or did you get kicked out? Because I'm thinking
Well,
that she might have been like,
like I said,
I don't know.
it's all about narrative. So the narrative is is that I quit. But they were probably happy to see me go. But like this is now the official Troy Johnston podcast. So like you're in a fight, like I got your back, brother. Like I mean, I can use my 3 weeks of
I love it.
training, and you use your wrestling skills. Like we could take anyone on.
We could take anyone. I mean, I'll put them on the ground and you roundhouse them. That's it.
That
That's all we need.
I will.
It's a 1-2 punch.
That's exactly right. I will break some noses out there. Um, but let's talk about this. You were kind of nasty in high school. I'm looking at your numbers. Of course, like you were a football star, you know, you did everything, but 482 as a freshman, batting 500 as a sophomore, 485 as a junior. Were you just body bagging high school pitchers?
They were not. There was about one team in the league, two teams that were really good, but the gaps at the field that I played with were big.
Mhm,
It was a nice field. It was a good
mhm.
college field. In high school, that our local community colleges would play there, so it had to be certain dimensions. But yeah, it was it. I just the pitching was easy. It was kind of high school baseball
Yeah,
wasn't very tough for me. And then I got to college, and I'm like, oh, it's a little tough. It's a little tougher
yeah.
here. Everybody's good.
So when
Every
did you
level you go
commit?
up.
What year did you
I
commit to college?
So after my freshman year, I had a pretty good game against our rival Puyallup High School, and so I got immediately after that, I got an offer from the University of Washington my freshman year, and then I got offer from Gonzaga later that year, and I was like, okay, I'm a freshman. I don't even know that I wanted to go to college at this point. I know I wanted to play baseball. I didn't know that I wanted to do all this stuff. My parents are teachers, so they were like, no, you're going to college. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but I went and I traveled around to different schools. I put like a list of what I thought would be dream schools, what I thought all this
Mhm.
stuff. So I went to Oregon State. I went to University of Oregon. Never made it down to UCLA. UCLA was one of my dream schools. If I wasn't going to play baseball, I still was like, oh, I might go there. But went to Gonzaga and immediately felt like home.
Mhm.
Ended up having them wait a year, and I committed after my sophomore high school season.
Wow.
So
So
I
you
was like,
go into
there.
your sophomore season as like pre-committed. Like how I would have been the cockiest guy out there if I was, 14, 15, already committed to a good school, a good program. Like, and then you put up these numbers like, whoa.
I mean, for me, it was never really about that. I was
Yeah.
more of the fact that I wanted to be better than everybody in my area. It was cool that I committed to a school, but
Hmm.
everybody that I knew I trained with, they were all going, they were going to Division I schools. They were going to
Okay.
bigger schools. They were going to different places. And I was like, if I'm better than you, then
Yeah.
that's that. There's nothing I mean, there's no comparison at that point. So all it was just trying to win games and
Yeah.
do my best and have fun, be a kid.
No, for sure, absolutely. And was there anybody maybe in your conference or your school who was like maybe that guy, like in your area, like maybe if you played travel ball
Yeah.
or whatnot, like was there anybody who's maybe committed or went to go pro?
Oh, there's quite a few guys. So my freshman year, I played with Logan Ice, if you remember that. He went to Oregon State as a catcher, played at Oregon State, and then his junior year, he got drafted by the Cleveland Indians in 2017, I want to say. He made it to Double A, played for a little bit, but was a highly touted catcher, switch hitting catcher out of Rogers High School. And then another guy who went to Oregon State was Luke Heimlich. He actually went to my high school and then transferred over to the rival high school, Puyallup, and had something. He had to sit out a year and play JV or something like that, and did something dumb like 6-0 with six perfect games. And I'm not kidding. I legit think it was six perfect games. I
Wow.
don't think he was like 94 from the left side at this low like 3/4 slot with four pitches.
Yeah.
And then he ended up leaving high school early and going to Oregon State. So he was like this homeschool kid.
Okay.
So he won a state championship with Puyallup High School, and then or went his senior year and just went to Oregon State early.
Wow.
And so those were some of the guys. And the other guy that I train with right now is Levi Jordan. He's in the Cubs organization right now in AAA, I believe. So those, I mean, we had dudes all over the place playing. I mean, it's just a good baseball area.
That's awesome. And like I'm from California, so like obviously California just breeds talent everywhere. But now I live in
Yep,
Wisconsin, and like we have a couple like decent prospects here and there, but it's nothing like the Texas, the Californias, the Florida schools where they're just it's
correct,
sunny like year
correct.
round where you can just like train all the time. But
Yes,
that's just the way it is.
yeah.
But good for you. So
Well, and the big thing in Washington, I'll mention one other guy, Corbin Carroll, another Seattle guy,
mhm,
who's making his debut at 21 or something like that, coming
nice.
up here, I think today or something.
For
But
who's to play with?
the Diamondbacks,
Okay. Oh, I read about that. Yep.
yeah, the center fielder. But the thing about Washington that in California you play all year round, all this stuff. There's in Puyallup specifically, there are 4 to 5 baseball facilities,
Oh
just
wow.
indoor facilities, cages, full infields, everything like that. I usually work at them in the off season, and so that's how baseball thrives up in the
Mhm.
Northwest is because we don't have to practice outside; everything's inside.
Nice. Yeah, and like you said, you're that's obviously a good group of people from your general area and from that state who are kind of making their way and going pro as well. So how were the visits then? Because you mentioned you went to different visits and all that. Like, did you commit like to Gonzaga after your or is it Gonzaga or Gonzaga? I don't want to butcher it.
Gonzaga, you did it right. Yep,
Okay, for sure.
Gonzaga. Yep.
Like did you committed to Gonzaga like officially after your sophomore season? Like, but how were the school
Yep.
visits? Because obviously, like you mentioned a couple sweet schools.
Yeah. So the school visits were great. Well, it all went down to more of like what I wanted, playing time,
Hmm.
how the schools work. Because most of the schools that I went to, University of Washington, Washington State, like all those Northwest schools, Oregon State, they had really, really big freshman recruiting classes. Like they were 15, 16, 17 guys for maybe 5 spots. So I went to Gonzaga and they were like, oh, we have five. Usually we have 5 pitchers and 5 position players that we recruit. And
Hmm.
we're very, very specific with who we recruit. And I'm like, okay, that fits my mold. That fits what I want. And for me, Spokane, it's actually funny. My grandparents live probably 5 blocks away from campus at Gonzaga. And so they're pretty much on campus. Um, and so for me, Gonzaga just felt like home. And so I knew I wanted to go there when I first visited and played there and did everything. I knew it felt like home. But I just wanted to check the other schools just in
Yeah.
case something stood out. But in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, Gonzaga's probably it. That's
Mhm.
where I want to go.
Like just the overall experience. Like, did they have a good? You have a good team? Like, how was? I mean, obviously basketball. When we think of Gonzaga, but and then I think they went to the
Yeah,
final your freshman year.
they did. Yeah, my freshman year, we were actually on a plane. I think we were leaving Loyola Marymount, and we were watching the game on the plane, and everybody's going crazy, and they're burning couches in the street, doing all the college things and whatnot. But the experience there was fantastic. Like I said, as being an outfielder at Gonzaga, it was a little bit cold. Standing out there in the snow from November to
Mm-hmm.
March, and so you're practicing in the snow most of the time. Again, another indoor place, but other than that, I mean the experience was incredible. The education was great. Um, Everything about it, the lifestyle, the area, it just felt like home. You had a little bit. It wasn't downtown Spokane, so you did have the downtown atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
but you did have this little bubble that Gonzaga was sitting on.
How far is that from Seattle? Because I've been to Seattle and I think I've been to Spokane once.
Yeah, it's about 4 hours.
Okay.
If you take I-90, which I know you guys have in Wisconsin, I think it's I-94, I-93. If you take that right across I-90 all the way to the coast, you'll go right from Seattle to Spokane, and it's about maybe even Seattle to Spokane might be 3.5 hours, something
And,
like that. But
but
it's
you
very
grew,
doable drive.
yeah, but you grew up closer to Seattle, right?
Yeah, in Tacoma.
Tacoma.
Yeah,
Okay, that's where I've been. I've
yeah,
been to Tacoma.
yep,
I haven't been to
yep,
Spokane.
yep.
Yeah. So
So
when I
yeah,
think of
Tacoma.
go on.
Yeah, Tacoma is like we're in the suburb of Puyallup, and so Tacoma is like a good area. It's just a little bit farther away from Seattle, about 45 minutes north, 40 minutes north or
Yeah.
south. Sorry.
No, it's all good. So when I think of Seattle, and this is my California brain, because just being a little bit southern than you guys, I think of like flip flops, kind of hippie. Like, what? Like, how Seattle are you?
I'm not as Seattle as you think. I'm more country western because
Okay.
the more south you go in between kind of, Seattle and Portland, it's
Hmm.
just all agriculture there. It's very southern. You get to Yelm, Olympia area. It's just a very western kind of state of mind. And then you go over to Spokane and you think of Boise, you think of Montana. That's all kind of grouped together there. So that kind of, northern cowboy kind of thought, that's more closer to what I am. I'm not, Birkenstocks in my Patagonia with my rain hat and umbrella,
Okay.
walking through the streets of Seattle with my coffee. I'm more like have my boots on, go to a country concert, and have a couple tall boys and hang out by a fire.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. So I've been to the original Starbucks. I didn't go in. I just stood outside it because the line was like forever long.
Yeah, I
And
was
I was
gonna
like,
say because the
it tastes like Starbucks, no matter where it's at. But
exactly,
just
exactly.
being, able to see, the original Starbucks. And I'm not even a big fan of like Starbucks coffee in general. I think there's so much better coffee out there. But I mean, I don't know if that's like, I just offended you and half of, your family, but
No, I totally agree because Starbucks is everywhere. You can find it on every
yeah.
street corner. But the best places that I've seen is when you go to Washington. They're usually on in gas station parking lots or like in the middle of nowhere in these just little like huts. And you'll go in. They're the best coffee you'll ever have.
Yeah.
And you can find them again on every street corner. Where it's opposite of a Starbucks or something. People have to choose, but there's little spots like that all over Washington that just have much better coffee than Starbucks.
Yeah. So you're more of a cowboy guy. So do you have like cowboy boots? Like how country are you?
Oh, I got cowboy, but I'm more like I think I fit the pop star cowboy
Okay.
closer than the grungy, maybe Texas Amarillo cowboy.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I think I'd fit better downtown Dallas or downtown Austin than I would in,
Yeah.
the backwoods of, maybe in Waco, Texas or something like
Yeah.
that.
Awesome.
I think that's how
There you
country
go.
I think that's more how country I am.
So okay, so you broke the narrative that every Seattle person is chilling out there with their coffee in their hand, very hippie, maybe I don't know, because in California, like people think when I now that I'm here in Wisconsin, they automatically assume I'm a surfer. They they automatically I grew up with like
Automatically, yes, of course.
puka shell necklaces and
Yep.
yeah, so that's I
Oh
gotta
yeah.
gotta break the
And
mold a
you're
little
from
bit.
LA, probably.
Yeah, I seen like movie
Yep.
stars everywhere, but I grew up in San Francisco. But
Yep.
whatever,
Exactly.
it doesn't matter to them. I'm in California. Like automatically,
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
friends with like
Yep.
30 actors and actresses.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. And you're living in downtown LA, and you
Yeah,
have a one bedroom apartment that's $4,000, and exactly. But no, I think for me, I have a lot of friends that do fit the narrative
yeah.
of the Seattle. But like I said, that's more northern you get. Like when you almost get to like anywhere from like Seattle to like Bellingham
Hmm.
up north on that side of the mountain is very, very, you know, I'll dare I say depressed and coffee driven. We'll
Yeah.
put it that way.
There you go.
But when you get to the southern part, when you get to the southern part of Washington and you go to the eastern part of Washington,
Hmm.
kind of that anywhere that southeast part, it's a very agricultural, very it used to be farming towns and all those places, or logging towns, and so it's very it's very homey and very suburby. It's not really that you know it's not really that gloomy. I'll put it that way because Washington in the winter is very gloomy and people love it. They're like, "Oh, I love the rain. I love how it's dark all the time." I'm like, "No, I need sun. I'm depressed.
Yeah.
I'm in the sun. I'm in the sun for 6 months out of the year, and then I go home and I'm like, I don't see the sun for 4 months.
Yeah.
It's a little give and take kind of thing, but yeah, people love it. And let me say, there are a lot of people. I would say about 60% of the people fit the narrative, and then
Yeah.
you got the outliers, the other 40. I am
Yeah.
one of the outliers, I would say.
There you go. Yeah, like I said, you gotta break the mold. No big deal. So let's talk about this. When did you when did you realize, like I ask this like all the time, like when was your like if to when moment when you stop asking or saying if I get drafted, but when I get drafted, and when you started maybe scouts were looking at you a little bit more, maybe you're getting some questionnaires. Like when was that moment when you're like, you know what, I might actually get drafted?
So I remember getting a bunch of questionnaires after I got done with the um, I got a bunch of questionnaires done when I was in high school after I got done with the area code games,
Hmm.
and that was really cool because I was like, oh, maybe I got a shot out of high school, and then I was
Yeah.
like, I don't really want to go play professional baseball yet.
Hmm.
It's not for me yet. I'm not ready. mentally. Physically, I might have been ready, but mentally, I was like, no, I'm not ready. I don't want to do that. But for me, I kind of knew when I was, yeah, see you, Johnny. Sorry about that.
Sure.
I kind of knew I had a weekend at Gonzaga against San Francisco, the Dons.
Yeah.
I had a weekend where I hit. I think the first night I was 4 for 5. The
Jeez.
next night I was 3 for 4, and then the that Sunday I want to say I was 1 for 4, but I had 4 home runs and 2 doubles, and all of a sudden my phone just started blowing up
Yeah.
after that, and I was like, okay, I need to pick a number. This is real. I need to do actual prep work for the draft. And
Yeah.
so for me, I was like, okay, I had a really good freshman year. I was like, okay, cool. Sophomore year, I got hurt. And then my junior year, I was like, okay, I'm done with school. I'd like to go start. I'd like to take my chances and go pro if I have the opportunity. And I was like, okay, this is real. Right about, I want to say it was maybe a little bit after April. And I was kind of like, okay, this is real. I got to start prepping for this.
Hmm. That's awesome. And how were the questionnaires or like the interviews with the different teams? Like, what team was maybe the most interested in you, or did you know the Marlins were pretty, or did you think that the Marlins were going to draft you?
So I had a couple questionnaires here and there because, of course, they have that website portal that they do all the questionnaires now, and you can do, all the teams can send you their personal questionnaires and all this kind of stuff. It's really cool. It was a lot better than when I did in high school when I get paper copies and I have
Yeah.
to write all of it down. It's much better. But I did not know that the Miami Marlins were that interested. I thought the Dodgers were more interested, and I thought the Kansas City Royals were more interested, and actually the Milwaukee Brewers as well.
Nice.
Mostly because I played with his son. It was Waylon was the area director at the time or area scout at the time. But those 3 teams, and then I got drafted, and I was sitting there on my couch. I didn't check my phone. I was really nervous. It was the third day. I was like, okay, I know I'm going to get drafted this day. If I don't, it just kind of is what it is. But I knew I was going to get drafted that day. I just didn't know when. And I ended up getting a text from one of my buddies like, oh, okay, congrats. And I'm like, who did I get drafted by? Nobody called me. Nobody said anything. And the Miami Marlins drafted me. And then as I got off the phone with him, Scott Fairbanks called me and was like, hey, we drafted you, all that kind of stuff. So, but I think I really had no idea the Marlins were that interested in me at the time.
Interesting. So you're like your agent, or I don't know if you had one at the time, but he wasn't like in communication with you, like, hey, like this is the rumors, this is what we're hearing, yada yada.
No, he was just trying to. I think he was just trying to do his best to, get try to work out numbers and try to do all that. And so
Hmm.
the good part is I didn't have to negotiate anything. I think he did all the negotiating for me, and I told him exactly what I wanted, including having the rest of my school paid for. And so I didn't have to do any negotiating, and I got exactly what I wanted. So my agent did exactly what he was supposed to do. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And before we talk about like the minors and stuff, was there any team maybe like in your conference at college that like you just love to hit against? Maybe their fans were just a little extra cocky,
oh,
maybe like they would chirp at you a little bit more when you're over there. What team was it like in college where you're like, I just can't wait to just crush homers against them?
I one of my favorite teams to play was St. Mary's, another California team, of
Yep.
course. But St. Mary's because they were so chippy, and I always hit well. There's one guy I always hit well against was Ken Waldachuk, and he was just nasty in college.
Did he get traded to
But
the A's from the Yankees? Or is that maybe I'm thinking
I
something
think he
else?
I think he did. I want to say he did. I want to say
Yeah.
he got traded,
Okay.
but
Yep.
he was a great lefty arm. I had a home run against him in the opening round my freshman year, and then I had a game a go ahead home run and on a Saturday at our place and it got really loud. But that they their atmosphere and what they did is they're screaming at guys from the dugout. And our Gonzaga, I mean, we're just big burly country boys at Gonzaga that just we don't say much. We do our job and we just give it our best. And all the St. Mary's guys are yelling at us and chirping us, and we're realizing that that's the California way to play baseball in college, and we just weren't. And they were just very very trippy. They strike you out. They're yelling at you at the mound as they're walking back into the dugout, that kind of stuff. And so it was always good to just kind of play them and yeah, of course beat them.
Yeah. What were some of the things they'd say, us California kids?
Well, I don't know if they're appropriate for a public podcast. We'll put it that way. And
There
of
you go.
course, our yeah, exactly. So that I would say that they were along the lines of
I don't want to put the E on on this podcast for
that.
we'll leave it at that. So let's talk about the minors real quick. Obviously, this, like I said, this is podcast is what more than baseball. They're doing a really good job with fighting for minor leaguers' rights and all that kind of stuff. I got to give you credit. You played at Beloit, and I had Brian Hoeing on, who just made his major league debut not too long ago with the Marlins. Shout out
Yep,
to him for doing his thing.
yep.
And I told him, I said, dude, you got to put on your bio like Beloit survivor, because that has to be one of the worst stadiums like that I visited as a fan, and that people have told me who have played there and against them.
Yes, it is 100% one of the single worst stadiums that I've ever played in my entire life. I got there coming from, the Jupiter Hammerheads of the,
Yeah.
playing on a major league spring training field to go in there and thinking at first base I had to wear a mouth guard and potentially a face mask because of how unruly the hops were.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was good hitting out to center field during the day. You just pop one up and it'll go out. But yes, I think a Beloit Survivor. But have you seen that new stadium?
Beautiful. Yeah, I've been there.
Absolutely, it is perfect. I loved it, and especially as a lefty, pulling everything down the line. I was hitting home runs like it was nobody's business, just because of it flew so well to right field and center.
Yeah.
And so it was a drastic change coming from it. I mean, walking in and breaking in that new field was just so cool.
Yeah, I went to I think I have an inaugural 2022 season for the Beloit Sky Carp now. So when I went,
Oh, you
I
do
got me a
good.
shirt. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. I
Yeah.
should have worn it actually
They
now
got
that
they
I was
got
talking
good.
about it, but yeah.
They got good colors too. The Miami, of course, the Miami colors. Trying to get
Mhm.
all their affiliates to do that.
Mhm.
But yeah, good colors.
Yeah, so other than Beloit, like what was one city that you've gone to as, as a minor leaguer? You get off the bus and you look around, you're like, yo, where am I? I'm in the middle of nowhere.
That was Cedar Rapids.
Okay.
100%. I didn't even have to think about it. That was Cedar Rapids. And if we're talking about potentially even like before that, and we're talking short season when I was in Batavia, more of when I went to Batavia, New York was also one of them. But the hotel that they put us up in Cedar Rapids it was literally in the middle of a cornfield, and there was a gas station subway across the street, and that was it. And then there was the freeway.
Wow.
Oh, this is minor league baseball. Great. Awesome. Really
Yeah,
excited.
I've heard about
And
that one too.
the hotel was like 30 minutes away from the field. I was like,
Wow.
okay. But
That's
definitely I would say Batavia, New York, walking in and seeing where we had to live at the Quality Inn, with an indoor water park next to it.
nice.
I was a little shocked by that coming from, my cushy Gonzaga lifestyle.
I was gonna say, because I've talked to guys who were like SEC schools, ACC, like some really nice D1 schools where their travel is as good as like mine, like AAA teams or even like pro
Yep.
teams at some points. But then they go to the minors
Yep.
and they're grinding just like everyone else is, and that's just the way it is.
Yep. That's just the way it is. And hopefully, with the unionization here coming
Mm-hmm.
soon, hopefully that kind of changes and we kind of see a little bit. Oh, did I lose you? Okay, we're good. But hopefully that kind of changes and we get better, especially for those lower levels. That's really is where it hurts, is those lower levels.
Just looking at your numbers, like in the minors and stuff, like you're batting like I think over the last 3 seasons, 290. Everywhere I read, they say you're one of the best pure hitters. Like, what makes you such a good hitter that you think that you just maybe see the ball so well?
I think it's my approach of always trying to get better.
Yeah.
I have my key things that I want to do, being early, being on time, and working towards the center of the diamond.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always working on things. I'm never going back to. I'm never one of those guys that I'm like, oh, this worked for me in the past. I'm gonna do that. I was never one of those guys because the past is the past. That might have been a different level, might have been a different scene, might
Mm-hmm.
have been different coaches, different pitching. Now we have to move forward, and how am I going to get better?
Yeah.
How am I going to adjust myself to my struggles now versus, oh, what was I struggling with back then? Now I can do that and it'll still work. No, it's like I'm working on something every single day, and it might be different for each week. Usually that's what it is. It's each week to every other day. I'm working on something different, trying to focus on something to help me get better. And so I think that's the adjustability for me of quickly realizing what is wrong
Mm-hmm.
with my swing, with my approach, with my what's going on at the plate is really what sets me apart from other hitters, and why maybe I get those nice compliments.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I said, like you're one of the better hitters. Like your batting average is close to 300 over the last couple seasons. One thing that stands out to me that we may have to work on here, this season you only have 3 stolen bases. So like, I mean, what's going on here? Are we gonna we can try to
I
steal a couple
I
more, try to get to 5 at least?
I I get the red light quite often, and so I do not have those opportunities to steal bases, mostly because of where I hit in the order. I'm usually
Yeah.
hitting in the middle of the order, so I have guys behind me that could potentially hit a home run at any point. And so for me, stealing bases is really not that important. I'll sneak a couple in. Usually those stolen bases are actually me stealing third.
Okay.
When I was clock watching, or guys were really slow to the plate, and I just get a good job. But most of the time, I have no. I might sneak a couple here. We only, we got 25 games left or something.
Okay. Yeah,
Maybe that'll work.
I
Maybe
can
it
hear you
won't.
better. Yeah, I can hear you better now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like I said, we'll try to get to 5 but stolen bases. That's the goal. I mean, we'll set a goal here, and when you do, I'll have to retweet it. Be like, this is for me.
Okay.
I'll take the
Good.
credit for that, obviously.
Take the credit.
Um,
Good.
for just the coaching up that I just given you. But what is maybe one interesting or funny like minor league story that you have where you try to tell people they're like, that's you're a professional baseball player. How are you going through that? And you're like, that's just the minors. Maybe like an interesting fan interaction or like a bus ride, or maybe just like a hotel that just was terrible.
I'm trying to think. Other than the fact that all these I have interactions all the time where people are like, oh, why can't you give me a bat, why can't you give me a ball, you guys are millionaires, like why aren't you doing this, and I have to tell them, I'm like, not really.
Mm-hmm.
I could use an extra $25 if I'll trade you a bat for that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, the only other story is really staying at that Quality Inn my very first year. I'm coming from staying at nice hotels everywhere in college baseball, getting put up in nice places, and having
Mm-hmm.
these pristine equipment and pristine training facilities, to go into a short season team where it is very lackluster. And I even put the Beloit Snappers old field in comparison to that Batavia New York field. It was very very similar. And so that kind of transition where you're like, oh, people think, you made it to the big leagues right after you got drafted. It's like, no, you almost go backwards a step, and then you go a huge step forward, and then you go backwards, and then you go
Yeah.
forward again. So, that kind of grind is more what it's like, oh, that's more what minor leagues is.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like you said, minor league is that grind. Especially if you start like at a rookie ball and you have to go from rookie to low A to high A to all the way through up to leagues, and eventually you get there and you're in triple A now. So you're just a
Yeah.
right next the next step is the majors. And I'll say this, 4 or 5 of my guests have made it their major league debut this season. So I'm not gonna say it's my I'm not
All
going to take the
right.
credit, but I'm also not going to say it wasn't because of me and them coming on the pod. So if you make it to the majors this season, like you might need to shout out Francisco, be like, this is because of him, like the stolen bases. Just give me a little shout out and be like, all right, that's it is what it is.
That is a guarantee. No doubt about it. You should expect that.
Yeah, and like I said, and like this is a Troy Johnston pod. So like you make your major league debut, you get the call. Let me know. It'd be like I'm not going to break it. I'm not passing. But send me that DM like, hey, it's on, and I'd be like, all right, maybe it's against the Brewers
It's
or
on.
something.
Oh, there you go. And then you
Send me
get some
your
tickets.
send
I
me your
like it.
wrestling gif. Send me a wrestling gif, and I'll
Oh,
know immediately. I'll know. I'll be like, it's on. Hopefully, it's against here in Milwaukee. That'd be sweet, or the Cubs, somewhere I can drive and see you and all that stuff. But yeah, man. Last thing I want to talk about before we get off here, like, what is your like get hype music that you listen to, or maybe what you do to get prepared to face pitchers here in the minors.
well, I mean, pump up music, very old school. I'm like early 2000s rock.
Mm-hmm.
That's what does it for me. I'm not a rap guy. I'm not country to get pumped up and all that. I like rock. borderline screamo,
There
big on that.
you go.
But other than that, just preparation, trusting what I have, and half a scoop of pre workout before every game to get me just a little bit jittery.
With water or you just dry scooping it?
Yeah, no, I definitely do water. I'm not hard enough to do a dry scoop. That's not me.
Hey, you know what? Let me ask you this. There was a guy, what was his name? He was in Beloit this season. He just got promoted. Now my mind's going blank. It's gonna bug me because he's my guy. But he said there in the Marlins bullpen, there's a guy who would like um drown himself before he went out to pitch. In Beloit last
Hmm.
season and this season. He might that gentleman, I don't know who he was. I can't remember that name, but he said the whole bullpen started doing it where they would like get water in a cup and just like breathe it in and then like hype themselves up. Do you know about that?
Was that? Oh yeah, I know about that. That it's supposed to like bring you close to drowning so that it alerts your system and wakes you up.
Yes.
So it does
Yes.
the same. Yeah, so it does the same thing. I have yet to try it, but there's a lot of in minor league baseball, you meet a lot of different people who've got a lot of different backgrounds and thoughts, and so you'll see a lot of different things. But that I have noticed has been one of the. I'm trying to think who the pitcher was. I've seen Josh Simpson do it. I've
That
seen Colton
might have
Hawk
been
do it.
him. That name sounds familiar.
Might
Um,
have been Simpson. Yeah.
yeah. It would have been. Oh man, I gotta see. It's gonna bug me. I'll tell you exactly who was telling me about it. He just got promoted to Double A. Just
Oh,
recently.
was it Sean Reynolds?
No, it was Tyler Mitchell who told me. So Tyler Mitchell, he just
Mitchell. Yep.
yeah. Do you know Mitchell?
That's yeah. Yeah, Mitchell's the man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kick his butt in cards all the time.
There
So
you go.
yeah,
Okay,
he can.
I'm gonna have to let him know that. I'm gonna send him a message after this
Yeah,
and be
you
like, "Yo, step up the game a little bit. You know what's going on?"
step up the spades game. Yeah, he needs it. He needs all the help he can get.
Yeah. But yeah. So anyway, so someone in their bullpen, he was telling me about that, how they would drown themselves, and I just thought that was the most interesting. Okay, so you haven't tried that. I told him that I will try it sometime. You know what? If I ever go see him at
Sometime.
some point, yeah, maybe maybe during spring
Maybe
training, if I make it out there, I'll try and see how it works.
there you go. Maybe before a podcast, you get yourself hyped up
Oh
and
man,
you do one of those.
I might have to do that or smelling sauce before a podcast and just to hype myself up. But hey, I want to thank you for coming on the pod, man. I appreciate talking to you. Hopefully I didn't take too much of your time, but definitely appreciate you coming on. I'm gonna have to have you back on. Hopefully you get that major league debut soon. We'll speak it into existence. And like I said, this is a Troy podcast now, so we got your back. And anyone's out there chirping you. Like this is your official burner account. I would say it like that. Like I'm gonna be out there fighting the fight for you.
Deal. I like it. I appreciate it. No, I thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
All right, brother. You have a great rest of your night.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.